Hey darlings. Galya, what do you mean you can't? You understand that mother will be unhappy. She was counting on your help, Galya, and she herself understood that Iraida Fedorovna would not only be unhappy, she would be furious. Maxim, I really can't. I feel so bad, I think I'm going to fall. I wonder why you felt so bad. It was then that my mother Galya was waiting for us. It was terribly offensive that her husband cared not about her and her condition, but about her mother, who continued to harass her even after they broke up, Maxim really thought. After she and Max announced that they were taking out a mortgage, Iraida called her that, Galya almost had a stroke. Well, after Maxim made Galya happy, Iraida handed over all the housework to her, and before she didn't particularly do it. Worries about cooking and cleaning, and now, in general, she has renounced everything in her life. Only Maxim and the TV series are left, and a few hours, of course, to eat Galina's brains after they finally moved. Galina's responsibilities remained cleaning the apartment, which was on the other side of the city. Iraida Fedorovna was still dirty when Galya arrived. The dishes were all dirty in the kitchen, as if they were throwing grease at the cockroaches, while also using other food products from the frozen stains and rubbish on the table and floor. Galya could unmistakably understand what the elderly lady cooked during the week. Sometimes Galya seemed, although no, she was sure that Iraida was deliberately creating such a mess that Galya would have to try, and she did try. But what could she do? She didn't know how to tell Maxim I won't. It would be ugly. Max sometimes even apologized to her. True, so that my mother, God forbid, would not hear. But Galya, that was enough, because for Maxim it was already a feat. Maxim, I felt bad 2 weeks ago, I could stand it, and now I just can't. If you were a little more attentive to your wife. Then of course you, Galya, noticed everything. Don't talk nonsense. Of course, I would have noticed if you were feeling unwell. Maybe we would postpone it until tomorrow. Of course, no. Be very happy. But we are all people. Galya sighed. How I wanted to fall down and sleep for a day or two. But I couldn't. Minus she really wanted to sleep all week. It's a shame to admit that she fell asleep twice at work. Good, Maxim, but definitely don't promise %. I don't know how I will be tomorrow. Everything will be fine. You will rest. And that's it, Galya. I barely got home, and immediately I sat down on the sofa, only she managed to throw her coat on the floor. Almost immediately fell asleep. She heard Muka's edges when Maxim arrived. How he slammed the pan with displeasure, because she didn't do it to prepare dinner. Fresh. He had to eat the rolls. Yesterday's cabbage. Entered the room several times. But Galya didn't turn around. Maxim sighed loudly and went to the kitchen again. She didn't hear him go to bed again. She fell asleep again in the morning. She woke up as if nothing had happened yesterday. Maxim just needed to rest. But there was nothing ahead for 2 weekends. She was going to sleep, and then Galya remembered Iraida's day. Throw it away, and it's impossible not to go. Galya was about to run into the room to lie down and say that nothing had gone well for her. But Max came into the kitchen. Galya, that you're walking by? Then Mom already called twice. Get dressed. You're going to have tea. Then Galya sighed, argued to explain something. Completely useless. She went to get dressed. As she passed, her husband murmured, "And good morning to you." Max looked after her, surprised. What does that mean? Iraida Petrovna met them on the landing. They really remembered me. Of course. Who needs me now? You can't visit your mother. Months ago, Maxim kissed his mother on the cheek. Mother, don't shout. You understand that yesterday we couldn't come. It's not my fault. I know, Maxim. It's a shame that little by little your wife will separate us. Completely. Maxim sighed sadly. After minutes, she and her mother were already sitting on the sofa, and I watched TV. Galya had nothing else to do. How to start cleaning? Max didn't even try to help her today. It was so hard for her that she wanted to cry. She picked up the trash, went into the room. Max took the trash out. He turned to her in the sense. Galya felt such indignation rising in her soul. Well, it's dark in her eyes. Take out the trash. Max lifted. My Iraida Fedorovna pulled him back. Son, you don't come to me anyway. He will endure. He won't break. Galya slowly took off her gloves, folded them carefully, and threw them at my husband. I'm going home, eh? You end up here without me. She saw her mother-in-law's look. Yes. For that look, Galya is ready to give half her life. She quickly dressed. She heard her mother-in-law's voice rising. Hysterical notes in the room, and Galya should have also prepared something tasty for her. The woman quickly went downstairs and immediately felt tired. What is this before? She cleaned 2 apartments, and even after work, and at least something. But now she moves a little and still has no strength. She decided to walk to the dam and sit there to get some air today. Day off. Why not spend it on yourself? Galya resolutely went towards the park. On the way she bought a large ice cream. She walked and smiled for unknown reasons. She didn't even notice that a man was looking at her. He was also smiling. Galya sat down. If on an empty bench with pleasure, he stretched his legs and began to eat ice cream. The mood improved with every second. How good it is when Iraida and Max are not around. She tried to push away stupid thoughts and went back to the ice cream shop. Now nothing matters. Someone sat next to her. Of course, she wanted to be alone. Space for all of you. It's so good, I wanted ice cream too. Galya turned her head in surprise. Next to a man of about 40 was sitting next to her and was smiling broadly. She hadn't spoken to anyone in a long time. I was at work. Iraida Fedorovna, the woman, was confused and embarrassed. The man laughed. I'm not going to put you off the ice cream, so I bought it too. He showed a big horn. Galya laughed. She didn't understand how she did it. Galya was immediately embarrassed and turned away. It wasn't enough to laugh with strangers here. Sorry. If I got in the way, it's okay. The store wasn't just for me. For a while, they ate ice cream in silence, and Galya, he looked out of the corner of his eyes. I looked at him. He was very handsome, strong, well-dressed, hands with long fingers, but not fragile, but strong. He was also looking at her. She quickly looked away. My name is Leonid. Today is my first day off in 2 weeks, and I wanted it. Spend it usefully. Galya smiled involuntarily. Do you think ice cream will bring a lot of benefits? The man laughed. Well, why not? I'm not on a diet. I eat very rarely. So it's just what you need to improve your mood. Maybe you're right. You didn't tell me. How can I contact you? Galina. Galya immediately scolded herself. She couldn't tell Lena or Tanya anyway. She will rarely maintain a relationship with him, and nowadays she probably shoulders a common name. Okay. Excuse me. It's time for Galya to see the disappointment on the man's face. But she understood that she didn't need all that. She has a husband. She has a family. She stood up abruptly and felt that everything was spinning in her head. A river swam somewhere, and her legs went limp. The next moment she lost it. Consciousness and collapsed at the man's feet. Leonid looked at her for a second, then threw away the ice cream and sat down next to her with one hand and counted her pulse with the other. From all sides, Galya woke up at night. She opened her eyes right in front of her, and there was a sunset. The woman didn't understand anything. She remembered the park. She remembered that man. As she ended here and in general, where is here? How do you feel? She turned her head. Still the same man, only in a white robe and cap. Who are you? Where? Immediately got into her head. She was taken somewhere in a white coat, which means they will finish her doing experiments as some kind of abnormal thing. That's why he approached her in the park, but he couldn't get up. Not only did she feel dizzy and nauseous, she helplessly lay back against the pillow. What do you need? Leonid smiled at me. Absolutely nothing. You just vitally need a complete examination for a long time. That's what you have. Sorry. Let me introduce myself again. Leonid Andreevich Zurovlev. I am a doctor, and you are now in the first hospital. Galya felt so much relief that she even exhaled. Leonid looked at she strangely. What did you think but couldn't? She told him what she thought now. She had already looked at the neighbors in the ward and some kind of medical equipment and windows on which, by the way, there were no locks or bars. I was just scared. He put his hand. Don't be afraid of anything about her. Now we will do all the tests, and we will definitely find out what happened to you. Just tell me how long you have been feeling bad. Galya started talking and suddenly was surprised that she was feeling bad. For some reason, she simply hadn't paid attention for a long time, so I didn't think about it. But when Leonid Andreevich began to ask important questions, she answered. She was afraid that this was happening to her. When he left, Galya almost burst into tears. What should she do now? And if it's something serious? One of the neighbors in the ward sat down next to her. Don't worry. Leonid Andreevich, the best in our city, said he will find out what's wrong. It means he will find it. Concerned, Galya smiled. No one will cry too much if something happens. But don't say that, children. At least there are no children. Neighbor, she stammered and said everything will be fine. Don't worry. Galya, the nurse came and asked her to sit on the chair. Yes, I'll get there myself. You can't do it in order. The test will be ready at least by jumping, and now you can't. The same neighbor waved his hand. Sit down, don't argue. We're all rolling like this. Well, if that's all, then she will. Galya returned to the infirmary just 2 hours later. Her phone in her bag is ringing off the hook. Galya shuddered. She didn't warn Max, quickly opening her bag. She picked up the phone just as she started to play again. Yes, Galya? What are you doing? You have gone crazy. Where are you? What are you allowing yourself to do, Maxim? Don't shout like that. Don't scream. Have you offended my mother? Do you understand what this is like? Maxim, I'm in the hospital, doing something there. I lost consciousness. They brought me here for a few seconds. He asked a little more quietly, and when will they let you go? It's like a dance at home, and you didn't prepare anything for Mom until you lost your speech for a while. So she said, Maxim, you can do it. Are you listening to me? I'm telling you. I'm in the hospital. I'm sick. You understand. I'm not an idiot. When I got home, Galya didn't say anything else. She fainted, lay down and turned to the wall. It was so offensive that the tears fell by themselves. She heard the neighbors talking, the dishes clinking, then someone grabbed her by the shoulder. Stop chasing sad thoughts. Get up, let's have some tea. We have a tradition here before going to bed to lose weight. The neighbors laughed and Galya had no choice. Looked at her. Did you eat today? Galya shrugged her shoulders. The ice cream is great, and then they fainted. Nothing surprising. Let me make you a good sandwich, because it's a little water with a sweet. The woman was a little older than Galya. She walked out the bedroom door and returned a minute later, carrying sausage butter and a container of ribs in her hands. That's the truth. It won't be possible to get hot because in Wait Today Cerberus, she keeps an eye on our figures better than we do ourselves. By the way, Sonia's name is Sonia. She was a cheerful, short, and curvaceous woman. It was the impression that she had no problems, and all the problems she saw spread into such a solid positive ball. And get me out of here. In fact, I ate salad. They only brought it in the evening. I haven't put it in the fridge yet. Not 5 minutes passed before benches were placed between the beds and a makeshift table was set. The water in the jug began to boil. Sonia pulled out the boiler and said, in the evening we have coffee, but who wants it otherwise in the morning? If Leonid Andreevich smells catching it for all of us. He treats our blood pressure and we don't want to go home. Sonia laughed. Well, yeah, that's what he tells us. Galya ate the whole sandwich with so much pleasure, the sandwich that Sonia ordered. Maybe there's another. No, I'm about to burst. Laughed. Yes, you're just hungry. What is a normal sausage? They have been sitting for a long time. Loves, but at the same time works and loves Sonia's money. A daughter with whom I have no sweetness because my husband is in transition. A good one seems to be Papa. Well, and you and me too. Husband and his mother is like, well, we live separately, but it seems to me that Iraida Fedorovna is always with us. Sonia sighed. Don't be offended by me, but I had to immediately put my mother-in-law in her place. Mine was also a nomad, and my son kept persuading me. Since they took me out like that. Together, we haven't been married for a year, so she came to visit me, and they are sitting with her husband. I'm doing it wrong. The cutlets I have are not very juicy. I couldn't bear it. Can I use a frying pan to beat the pink salmon and send my mother-in-law to take my son to her? Otherwise I can level her back too. Years in perfect harmony with her. We lived together. We laughed. We liked that incident. We remember. Valera laughed. Sonia, well, you will teach her later. They will put you in prison, and it's your fault. You will stay here. My mother-in-law immediately knew perfectly well that if I don't hold her son on a tight leash, then everything is over for him. Galya listened and smiled. There were 2 women sitting in front of her. They both seemed to be cursing their husbands, but with so much love. Yes, and of course the husbands are a good salad. Obviously the husband did this. Everything was chopped crookedly, But he did it to feed his wife to please him. In the morning, Valya Sonia knocked in the room. The husbands looked at each other in surprise. At that time at work, Galya shouted, "Go into the room." Maxim came in. "Hello." He walked to Galina's bed and then sat down, kissed her on the cheek. He looked confused. "I was waiting for you yesterday." "I was waiting for Max. I said that at the hospital and that the doctor has said nothing so far. The test will be ready. Then he will say." And when they are, Maxim looked like a parrot. Galya was tired. From one of her difficult questions, she covered her eyes. Her husband looked at her in confusion. Catching the eyes of the neighbors, Galya realized, "Maybe bring what you need. Tell me, I need slippers, I need some things. I'll write to you now." Maxim took the piece of paper. "Well, call me right now. You will know when you get home." Right at the door of the ward, he turned. "Galya, to your mother. Call, apologize to her." Galya was surprised because she ran away without saying goodbye. Maxim, "Well, it's not difficult for you." He left and Galya just looked at the door. The neighbors immediately sat down with her. "Just don't be upset. Men are so defenseless when they are left without their wives." Galya sighed. "It's probably good that I ended up in the hospital. I'm looking at Maxim now, and I don't understand why I haven't seen this for so many years. We have kids, you know why not? At first we lived with his mother. I'm also from the village, but she immediately said that there are no children. Otherwise you will go out into the street. So they mortgaged the apartment. I won't tell you what it took to convince Max to take that step. Well, in general, we moved, and we can't have kids again because now it's a problem. Lone. It takes a lot of money to raise a child, and after all, I understand that he is speaking in his mother's words. But now I don't understand how to convince him. I'm years old, but I finally understand what kind of person Max is, his mother, and what should I do? And then the chance of giving birth is minimal, and even in such a situation," Valya sighed before Galya, "you understand. You only know what I will tell you, and in a woman gives birth and they start a new life. Ah, what a new life already. Come on. I'm used to it, yes, and it's not bad. His mother just ate his brains." Sonia laughed. "No, my dear, you need for longer. You may need to stay in the hospital." Asking for more head treatment. Galya also laughed. On the outside, it wasn't so scary. It seemed easier with a smile. The next day, Maxim brought everything on the list, and fish pies. Galya smiled sadly. "Mom baked." "Yes, Mom tried." Iraida Fedorovna would have known perfectly well what Galya had. "He can't bear it. He can't fish, and if he eats, he vomits incessantly. Tell your mother." "Thank you very much. Of course I'll go. But I'll go, Maxim. Nothing about tests. It's still unknown. No doctor said that tomorrow night." Galya went for a walk. The hospital park felt faint, but much better. She walked through the deserted alley, then sat on a bench, thinking. She and Maxim found the dining room, in a common dining room, where she used to run to eat in lunchtime. Next to her, because there were no seats, a girl, maybe a guy. He was handsome, and Galya nodded with a smile. Of course, somehow they talked imperceptibly. It turned out that Maxim worked at the same factory as her, only there and up. That's what they called the building where his bosses sat. Max was responsible for sales of products. In the evening of the same day she left after work, Maxim was already waiting for her. At first, they never left each other again. They spent the night with Gal in her small rented apartment, and then the magician said, "Galya, I have two beloved women, you and my mother. It's very difficult for me to be torn between you. Maybe we will get married and move to my house." Of course, Galya did not expect such an offer, but she would be delighted. Ideal in her eyes, which she saw in her village, yes. No one, normal guys, immediately came out of their hole. Only those who do not care about themselves remained. There was a village dying very quickly when Galya, after the death of her grandmother, was also preparing to leave. Half of the houses were already empty. Galya shuddered. She was so immersed in memory that she completely forgot where Leonid was sitting next of her. Sitting on top of a white robe, he had a jacket on. He was handing her ice cream. There were no Roskovs, just glasses. Galya couldn't resist smiling, took the ice cream, opened it, and took a bite. "With pleasure, Leonid Andreevich. You are just a magician." "Galya, can I ask you?" "Yes. Of course, let me be Leonid Andreevich." "Only there." He nodded to the hospital, "and here it's just Leonid." "Well, I agreed where you found the ice cream at that time. He laughed. If I said he jumped the fence and killed some ice cream cart owners, you won't believe it. I know, I won't believe it, so I will have to admit that I bought it in the morning on the way to work. Well, I don't know why. I guess I thought I would be able to lure you with ice cream for a walk. Galya burst out laughing. I would have gone anyway. One young woman is an unpredictable people. Don't you know that anyone who she is lying in the hospital, she only dreams of going out into the street for at least minutes. Well, of course I know. What if the ice cream didn't work? This is already serious. She had never eaten anything tastier. Leonid looked at her. His chest just tightened with pity and frustration for an unfair life. Literally an hour ago, the test results arrived. In principle, he suspected something similar, but did not think that everything was so bad. He immediately called his friend. He was also a doctor, but in a completely different direction. Lenya, I looked at what you sent me. I'll tell you right away if there are miracles in the world. So only a miracle can save this woman. It's so bad. You understand perfectly in this situation. Every time she gets sick again, she don't get up anymore. She will get weaker every day. As if you don't fill her with vitamins. Ruslan, what should I do? I don't understand. She is you who no one is just familiar. Leonid's voice trembled. Treacherously wait. I don't understand now. Our constant toy soldier gave up. Lenya grunted. Ruslan, well, as much as possible, but really? He was really called a toy soldier in their company, which was made up entirely of doctors. Only Leonid was not yet married. While he always said that he was not going to get married at first, how many girlfriends were brought to the holiday by the wives of friends? How many introduced him? All in vain. Leonid was alone, and here he is, a man of principles who never asks anyone. They simply ask an acquaintance, let him speak. I won't promise anything, but tomorrow I'll call someone and send them the tests. Maybe they're doing something else. I will say now. Leonid looked at Galya and did not understand at all how to tell her that she basically had months to live unless a miracle happened. And he, as a doctor, knew very well that miracles don't happen. Galya, and you have a dream. She was surprised by it. I looked. Well, I don't know. Some kind of children's room. You know, I always dreamed as a boy that when I grow up, no matter who I become, I will jump with a parachute and how everything is fine. I jumped and even went to serve in the army more than once. I even asked myself, I didn't need to go and ended up in the airborne forces. I've had enough. Jumping for the rest of my life. She thought, I don't know, little one. I dreamed that when I grew up I would buy a big dog, just a really big one. Grandma didn't like dogs. We only had cats. Maruska. Leonid looked at her with interest. And that you still haven't made your dream come true. She raised her hands. Not what a dog, like a child. She demands attention and care. And we are constantly at work, and then we keep a big dog in the apartment. This is real bullying of animals. Yes, here you are. You need to have at least one dacha. Galya smiled. It looks like we have one. The truth is that it is almost kilometers from the city. We only went there a few times. Then my husband said that life without civilization does not suit him, and the house is worth it. No one needs to sell it. It's a shame because I grew up there. There is no way to go there. Leonid was thinking about something, so he decided that today he won't say anything to her. And tomorrow he will have to go. When Max arrived in the ward and Leonid Andreevich immediately appeared. And Leonid Andreevich, forgive me, you are Galina's husband. Yes, me. What happened? Please come to me. So Galya still hasn't need to talk about her. Nothing. You and her will see each other later. When the man leaves, Sonia turned to Valya. This is what happened just now. You saw how long our doctor sat with Galya on the street yesterday, but of course you would have seen it. What do you think about this? And talk to your grandmother. Don't go to the crack. They found Andreevich and Galya upside down and how he is a decent person. Now all this, and I will tell all this to this Maxim, is wrong. It's all that Gaka is suffering, and that's why she suffers with them. And that's also how she treats Leonid like this, and who knows her? We didn't talk about any of this in the middle of their conversations in the infirmary. Galina showed up again. Want to do some tests? What's the discussion? Where are we, the husband, or has he already run away? Ah, Galya. It would be better if he ran away. She looked at them in surprise. What happened? You speak normally, not in riddles. Something, that he sat yesterday, our doctor, is with you under the moon, and we know how decent he is, and he took his Maxim to talk. Now he will tell him everything, saying I love. I can't fight. Galya sat on the bed, and if it's true, and if all this is true, Leonid Andreevich, especially since Galya was sure of this, he guessed that. She liked it very much. She jumped up. Where they went we don't know. But Leonid invited Maximov's office. Galya flew out of the room and ran to Leonid's office. She opened the door, but the men didn't notice her. Maxim said that you simply can't be, that she never complained about anything. You probably just didn't realize that she must have been so tired for at least 6 months. Doctor, how much time is left for her? Maybe 2 months, so little that she will walk all this time alone. I can't say that. All loss of conscience may end up lying down. Position. So what needs to be done so that she is not nervous at all? Galya immediately realized that the conversation was about her. She managed to understand that very soon she would leave, and she lost consciousness. Leonid raised his head to the chair and jumped. She didn't want to come to her senses. It was better here, and there she was. They don't want to see, they want her to die. Galina. She opened her eyes. A frightened Maxim was sitting next to the bed, and Leonid Andreevich was standing at the head of the bed. Galina, we need talk. You have to pull yourself together. She sat on the bed. Maxim, I want to go home, but Galya, who will I be with? To do with you at home? I have a job. I won't be able to be around all the time. It was clear to Maxim the very idea of being around wasn't very pleasant. You don't need to be near me. I can handle myself very well when I can't get up anymore. Take me to some madhouse. But Maxim, I want to go home. So Leonid Andreevich intervened. Galina, don't go crazy. You need to be treated. You need to take advantage of every chance. She looked straight into his eyes. There are many such chances. Leonid looked away. She got up and began to collect her things. Sonia ran to help her. Valya could not sit in the corner and fought back tears when everything was collected. Galya looked at her neighbors and smiled. Well, let's say goodbye. They hugged her, and Sonia said, why say goodbye? I'm sure we'll see each other again. Galya smiled sadly. In the next world, Galya is silent. Silent in home. Galya immediately went to bed. She missed everything very much, and to her husband too. But Maxim tried not to touch her, not to touch. He arranged a big room for himself. The woman wiped her tears. Well, for him, she didn't. It's just another tenant. She hardly slept at night. She heard that Maxim was talking to someone. Then my mother heard it on the phone. Well, everything is clear. Mom suggests ways to get rid of bile. And to be honest, she doesn't care at all. Even if he takes her to the forest, it's okay for a day. Earlier, a day later, it didn't take so long to fight for him. She forgot about it in the morning. When Maxima woke up, she was no longer at home. She had just made tea. When the doorbell rang, Galya was not there. I didn't even move. She was right. A minute later, after several knocks on the door, the key turned on the kitchen threshold. Iraida Fedorovna appeared. Galechka, and I thought you were sleeping. Hello. Iraida Fedorovna, hello. She pursed her lips sadly. Well, how are you feeling? Normally, how come Galechka? Maxim married you, and you are a surprise for him. You are Derivinskaya Zdorova. Must be it because you set my son up like that. That's how he is now. He works to take care of you. But I can't get old. Do you understand? Iraida Fedorovna talked about the very quickly, made me some tea, took out sausage from na butter refrigerator. I made myself a sandwich. Why take care of myself? I'm walking around alone. Exactly, every now and then. Why are you ruining the boy's life? Iraida Fedorovna, I don't understand what you want from me so that I go to waste. So this is my apartment, Max, and I paid half for it. He didn't like something, let him come to you and stay for now. Everything will end well. You will find out too. And then you will have to carry out renovations in the entire apartment, and this is a waste, and as you understand. Now you want I have no money. Galya was so painful, so offensive. She is not dying yet, and Iraida no longer hesitates to discuss her death. And what will happen after? Iraida Fedorovna, would you leave here? Wanting the woman to be offended, she pursed her lips, grabbed her jacket, but still couldn't leave like that. You know what I'm going to tell you, Galya, in principle. You won't be able to restrain yourself anyway, but then it would be worth thinking about why ruin his life. Don't be selfish. Don't think about how to ruin his life, and thinking about being remembered with a good word. She jumped up and slammed the door, and Galina covered her face with her hands. How is this possible? Why is everything different for other people? Did she understand perfectly that her mother-in-law wouldn't calm down if she didn't have it anymore? Nothing to say. So she will take over Max completely. Galya sat until evening in the kitchen. She didn't care at all. She heard Maxim arrive, went into the kitchen, said hello, looked in the pan. Galya thought that she, of course, she knew how to cook something. A conversation with her mother-in-law, as something took her out of her routine. She silently entered the room, lay down, and immediately woke up because Max was talking. Phone again. Mom, how can I offer this to her? And it's been a long time since anyone's been home. It should be the same. But say something. No, Mom, you don't need it. I myself. He hung up the phone and turned around. He saw Galya at the door. You heard everything. So much the better, Mom. And I think you need to go to your village. It is fresh air and everything. He did indefinitely gesture with his hand in the air. Galya looked at him and didn't understand how she could marry him. It's not even bestial to send one. Person dies somewhere far away. Harry understood perfectly well what kind of life awaits her here. She will constantly see eyes that ask her questions. Soon you will free us. I wanted to live these months in a different way, even if it's just 2 or 3. Maxim. If I'm bothering you here, then you can even take me to the trash. Galya, why are you exaggerating? It's not talked about any dump. You have a good house there. The neighbors will probably eat. You will breathe the air, drink milk under the cow. I will visit you. She laughed. You want to get rid of me, and at the same time you say you will visit me. You are trying to get me calm down, so much so that I agree, and I will agree anyway. I don't have the strength to see your faces. Yours and your mother's. Galya returned to the room, lay down facing the wall. Why exactly is all this happening to her? Why in the morning? Maxim woke her up. Galya, wake up, you need to go. Where? She looked at him in surprise. As to where? The village. But I haven't even packed my things. Don't worry, I'm already done. She smiled. Have some tea. At least you can. Galina, why are you doing this? I bought you groceries too. He looked at her like if he was waiting for compliments, and Galya wanted to beat him to the end. He constantly talked about how happy she would be there, which he often. He would come and bring everything she needed, as if he wanted to convince not only himself, but also Galya. She was sure that as soon as Maxim left, she would not see him again. The village greeted them on a beautiful spring morning. The sun was shining so much that Maxim had to wear sunglasses. Galya smiled. No. Well, why not a handsome man? At least that's how he looks. No one will think he's taking his wife out of place. House to die so as not to get in the way. Maxim stopped the car at the house. It's strange. Even the grass hasn't grown yet. Hi, but not a windbreak. Maxim quickly carried the bags home. Galya just stood there. I understand that you won't even come to Galechka. I need to go to work, but you know that I will definitely visit you in a few days. Maxim extended his hand to her with his lips, but Galya walked away. Don't waste your time with me. Galya, well, why are you doing this? You'll see that it will look much better here. Galya smiled at Maxim's back. If Galya had some kind of infection, the car disappeared, raising a cloud of dust, and Galya went to the house. She felt very good. The door opened willingly, and Galya squeezed inside the narrow passage because the suitcases did not allow the door to open any further. She always loved order, and now with some pleasure, she looked at the perfect order in the house covered with a layer of dust. But it's not scary. Nothing big needs to be done. You don't just have to clean everything, and she even took the bed linen to be washed, or rather, Max put it on her. She saw it coming out in the bag. Hey owners, maybe you need help. I'm ready for a small, purely symbolic fee, just to catch a little hangover. The door opened, and a hairy man appeared on the threshold. Harry looked at him and understood that she was sure. But who couldn't understand that? Are you a guy? Looking at her confused, spreading Vovka's pores of smoke around him? She widened her eyes, as if I were you. What kind of fate was Vovka? Her classmate. He was an eternal hooligan. Yet it was clear that he would not be a good guy. The local policeman went to his house as if he were work, and everyone respected Vovka even though he was a hooligan. He was fair. So he came for a long time. I don't know how long Vovka will last. Month 2-3, he looked at her strangely. You said as if she had come to die, yes. He looked like a Sherishin Vovka. You are married, but how do you remember Pyushka from the first-year class? Oh, I remember. She has been looking forward to you almost since the 5th year. We certainly have 3 children. How many? Well, you are a hero. Vovka sat on the sofa. The hero waved his hand. I drink and drink just like. Not seeing how poor my family lives, I can't do anything. You don't understand anything. There's no work. There's no money. I'm going to get drunk so at least I'm not so ashamed just because of the farm and we are leaving for the city. Well, what a city. Galya has 3 children. We need to rent a big apartment, and that one doesn't cost kopecks to earn everything for this and be left without everything again. Well, no, we need to come up with something to grow. Vovka, it always worked out for you. We think we understand here there are these breeds of chickens, but anyway, there is no money for all this. You need to buy everything. Tell me about you. Galya sat next to him, and there is nothing to tell. I am married. I have no children. My husband brought me here, so as not to suffer with me. Vova laughed. Well, you have jokes, but Galya was silent. A smile slipped from her face. Gal, you are serious? She nodded and finally burst into tears. Confused, patted her on the shoulder. You are the only one? No? If you want, I'll get Svetka tea. Let's have a drink. Talk to him. Let's remember everything. Galya nodded and then looked around the house. Help with this. I'll just bring your bags. Galya smiled a little to recover from her hangover. Well, that's it. Lay down and I'm coming home. I pushed him away and Galya started unpacking. Wow, what a caring husband she has. He even kept all her cosmetics, all her jewelry, probably so that nothing would remind him of her. Hairs, they always sat on her bed as an interior decoration. The hairs were identical in appearance, but different in size. Galya hugged the toys and threw them on the sofa. It was time to say goodbye to the past. An hour or so later, voices were heard in the yard. Galya came out. Hello. Galya looked at her. Svetlana. Galya, she. This is what a little chubby girl remembered with a smile. They hugged and Sveta was talking quickly and Vovka was telling me about you and I think I was completely drunk. But I spoke so convincingly that I had to go look and here it is you and why stop with your eyes in a wet place. Look how I treat you. Galya brought the brigade and looked in amazement at the 3 girls. They were about 2 years apart. They all looked like Vovka, but somehow I had the same color. Well done. You made a whole kingdom of princesses. Well, what can we do? Laughed skillfully and Sveta gave her such a serious look that Vovka immediately became serious. Until the night they stayed at Galya's house and cooked and had dinner in the yard and cleaned up the soap and cleaned. To be honest, Galya hadn't felt so good in very long time. There was no need to edify someone. It was necessary to endure insults hidden in kind words. She was herself. The girls turned out to be wonderful helpers if not for them. Galya saw them looking at the hairs. It was never time to go home. She solemnly handed them over and handed them according to their height. But the older one immediately gave the bigger hair to the little one and took the smaller one for herself. The little one jumped for joy and Galya almost burst into tears. That was when everyone should be for themselves and no. Evening. Vovka warmed up the bathhouse and came for Galya. Come on, come on. Svetka will fly to you at once and she will leave. Otherwise she decided to get sicko. Vova. Wait, at least I'll bring something tasty to the girls. She unloaded all the sweets into a bag, then took it out of the refrigerator, which thank God was working, although it was as old as Galya. A piece of sausage. Nothing like that. There was nothing more interesting. Maxim bought her only the most necessary things, but nothing awaited him. A big surprise awaited him when he reached into the box where they were saving money for a new car. The girls later, Vova and Sveta stayed up until midnight. Sveta steamed her so much that Galya had trouble breathing. And then so much lightness appeared in her body. It seemed like she could jump a little higher, and you could fly to the moon. She asked Vovka about their ideas. You know, we have a place where you can rent a lot of chickens at once, so we carry our own. But the chickens are small, and there is a breed that is 3 months old and ready. But for that you need money, you need to buy several chickens, create the conditions for the eggs to hatch, build pens for them to feed. Well, I can only build this myself. All the dreams and what you told Sveta brought a notebook. Look, if you donate in bulk in these, well, actually they are dreams. This if you open your own stall in the city with homemade products, Sveta. This is what you need, yes. I also thought it was a reserve for walking there and back. So it's not like that. And the notebook closed a lot of light, yes. Not much, but we don't have that. I work here, there's no allowance. My salary for clothes, yes. We buy something. We eat mainly from the farm, so I don't throw them all away. My dreams as I think. Maybe I will be lucky at night. They accompanied her to her house. True, Sveta asked Galya first. Maybe you can spend the night with us today. No, Svetachka. Thank you very much. We need to get used to our house. She was so tired, but the tiredness was pleasant. Galya. As soon as her head hit the pillow, she fell asleep immediately. At night, she dreamed of a bunch of fat chickens. Beautiful chickens, she sent. It was so strange to herd the chickens, and Galya had a lot of fun in the dream. She woke up with a smile on her lips. She thought she woke up just like that. But it turns out that then there was a knock on the door. Galya put on a robe and went open the door. Hello. 3 girls, Vovka's daughters, were on the threshold, and Sveta, she laughed yesterday when she found out what their names were, as if the parents knew in advance that they would only have girls. Hello, come in for a minute. The elder Vera put a bag on the table. So Mom sent milk, cream, and something else. You will pack everything and give us a bag. Give it to your mother. We took it. Galya smiled. Everything is true in the village. The container was always valued for milk. Not everything was a jar for apples. A bag when the girls ran away. Galya wondered how it was that she basically didn't know the world, but knew Vovka better. They themselves had everything bad, but they sent her the entire bag. Is it possible that the phone vibrated on the table? Galya shuddered. It was so unusual to hear him here. She stretched out her hand. Well, of course Maxim probably saw that there was no money. Hello, Galya, how could you? Why did you take the money? Oh, Maxim, hello. I am also in the section. I'll give you an apartment in 2 months. I'll probably have time to get mine. But in which section are you? Drunk there? Which section? Well, what kind of mortgage? You and I pay equally for the mortgage. Did you play? I left the apartment and half is mine. You know I always have order with all the checks. Don't you dare. He didn't speak more passionately, confused. How dare I? You'll see soon. You buried it. The guards, still have a lot to do. Galya fainted. She only now realized what needs to be done, and what she will do will be very correct. She has reached the bottom. The bags took out a small package, counted the money in the package. It turned out that it was about half of what was there. Galya laughed contentedly, put a few more bills in her pocket, hid the remaining money under the sofa. When she was little, there was a hiding place there. Sveta was in the yard pulling weeds from a flower bed. The girls were hanging around. Someone helped. Someone was on the way. Hello, Sveta. Turned around. Oh, Galya, hello. How well you slept? Sveta and Vovka were, yes, in the garden somewhere. He's so upset, but overall he's worried about you. He hasn't had a drink for the 2nd day. Galya smiled. Well, there you have it. You see, everything has its advantages. Sveta waved her hand. What are you saying? What is it? Galya turned around. The girl. Go, Dad. Call me. I need to talk to him. Sveta looked at her in surprise. That? It turned out that gal, yes. Don't worry. Definitely nothing bad happened. After 5 minutes they were sitting at the table. Sveta served everyone tea. Galya put money on the table. Well, in general, this is for your business, for your chickens. And Sveta looked at the money. Finally Vova said, Gal, we really appreciate what you are doing now, but we will not accept the money just for ourselves. There would be nothing to give back if something didn't work out now. Galya felt that Vovka, no matter how stupid he was still the head of the family, and no one doubted that Sveta would nod her head after her husband's words. But Galya didn't even listen. This is not discussed, and so who are you going to return them to? I will no longer have any heirs. I don't have an eye from the bottom of my heart. Really does not offend me. Take it. You can't imagine what it's like to know that at least in the last days of your life you managed to make someone a little happier. For a while the spouses were silent. Then Vovka squeezed Gal. To be honest, you can't even imagine what you did for us just now. Do not doubt that everything will be as it should be. Let's spin here. Deftly jumped, hugged Galya, then into the light. So I picked up all the girls at once and spun around the room. We will be successful and will definitely give birth to another boy. Sveta laughed. Everyone leave me alone. No boy will be enough for us. Nothing will be enough. The son must be. Galya looked at them and understood that this is happiness to be able to be happy and not try to learn no. Try to force yourself to be happy. Don't pretend that you are happy. Leonid Andreevich looked at a point in front of him. Life is getting a little strange. He met a woman for whom he was ready to do the most reckless things. She left. She neither tried to be different, nor tried to take a step towards her. Fortunately, Leonid saw how she looked at him. He was sure that she was not indifferent to him either. Yes, he is a doctor and he understands. He has seen more than once how the disease broke people, first morally and only then physically, and people gave up even in cases where it was possible and necessary to fight. Galya immediately broke down. She didn't even ask if something could be done. She just left with a doomed look. The phone rang. Yes, I'm listening, Lyanka. I have great news for you. Diamond, hello? What's new? Do you remember you sent a review of this woman? Well, I remember, of course, Leonid. I felt my heart beat faster. For my friend, he is now working on similar cases, but I didn't know that. The clinic is signing up for experimental treatment. He is sure that his protégé has every chance. You need to send her details urgently so she can be registered. Well, she's ready to go to the clinic. Len, were you silent? She left, went to her husband's house and said that nothing is necessary, and so did her husband. Just like that. He gave up. He didn't try to dissuade her. Lenya, I don't understand you. As I understand it, the woman is not indifferent to you, and that you will just sit with such a husband. She is twice as fast, and what do you suggest I do? Like, go save. Everything is in his hands. He doesn't want to make Lenya you. That Leonid was listening to understand that he really is a bit of an idiot. He doesn't care. Even if Galya never reciprocates his feelings, he will save her. At least he will know that she is alive. Dim, write the data. I'll find her here. This is in accordance with our dictate. I'm writing it down. Lenya has already come 3 times and rang the bell. It's strange for all normal people the working day ends at. But maybe. It's a clock. It's already 10 o'clock and no one opens. He sat down again on the windowsill at the entrance. Nothing. He's going to spend the night here. About minutes later, he heard Leonid's footsteps. He got up, but it was a woman. She looked at him suspiciously and began to open the door that was next to Galina's door. Shall I ask you some questions? The woman was scared, backed away. Don't be afraid. I'm a doctor. Your neighbor Galina was there for treatment. You understand that they are waiting for her in a good clinic for a successful outcome, but I can't find her. That's how sick Galya is. You're serious? It's very clear, but I think it's Maximka. So he was worried about sending her somewhere. He sent her from the apartment here. He is doing some business. He took her. I don't know where he took her. I saw through the window in the morning how he was carrying her bags. She had a lot of suitcases. So he took her for a long time. Forever. Leonid sighed. You understand? Galya stayed. Well, just a little. The faster I find her, the more likely it is that she will be cured. Where could you take it? The neighbor is upset. She threw up her hands. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Oh, Maxim. The infection is all. His mother is muddying the waters. Of course, it's a science fiction type assumption. Galya has a house in the village. Somewhere far away, but I don't remember what the village is called. Somewhere. I ordered to write it down. Sit down. I'll look. She entered the room and Leonid has already impatiently changed his name. As if Galya said that she has a house. She is definitely there, so she must be there. Otherwise he will be there then, and he doesn't know where to look for her. The neighbor came back. Look, she found it. She handed him a piece of paper torn from a notebook. He read the name of the village. Thank you very much. You are welcome. If only she were there. If only it was okay. Tell me if you find husband playing with her here. I will definitely say. He almost ran downstairs. If you leave now, you can reach the clinic in the morning. Lenya stopped in the middle of the village. Well, what should we do in the houses? Of course, the lights are still on. But if they didn't find him with a gun or a pitchfork, He didn't know village life very well, although he always felt attracted to living a little in those places. There was nothing to do. He needed to knock somewhere. He got closer to one of the houses and a shadow immediately separated itself from the gate. It was a huge dog. Barely. I managed to get into the car and slam the door shut. Okay, let's try somewhere else, but the dogs have gotten up all over the village. Leonid decided to go to all the houses. Be a dog somewhere. Gallium Light was sitting at the table. They thought that Vova was almost finished. The construction of the feeder was unrecognizable. Weak he hadn't drunk. Galya saw the kind of look she gave her husband. She thought to herself that it would definitely be her son. I checked all 5 again since they told Vova, well, let's go. We want to sleep. Sveta looked with pity at her husband. He smiled. So let's get some sleep, Galya, and you will go with us. Maybe we need something in the city. No. I won't go alone, but I will write a list. Well, okay. You will take care of the girls here. Galya laughed. They are the ones who take care of me so that I am under reliable protection, faith, hope, and love. They protect me to eat. They forced me to fly. They kicked me out. Vova smiled at their girls, and they really sponsored Galina. They took care of her like she was a little girl or one of them. They overheard a conversation about how Galya didn't live long enough, or whether they just liked her. But the girls were not a step away from her. The dogs dispersed, as if it were some kind of wolf. What a wolf! There is light in our direction. There have been no wolves for 20 years. Look at a stopped car. I'll take a look. Vova, Sveta. Calm down and don't look at the detectives anymore. Vova went out into the street, and the women heard what was happening there. But nothing was heard. Nothing happened for about 10 minutes, and it was as if Vova had been licked by a cow's tongue, and Sveta got up and she also got up on Galya Street. You and I, without saying a word, picked up a pile of firewood from the stove on the grass and headed towards the door. They didn't get there when the door opened. Vova and Leonid looked. They were surprised. She could not bear what was in her hands. First Vova. He laughed so hard that he even bent in half. Then looking at him, he began to laugh, and Lenya, the woman, was silent. Sveta looked at the floor in embarrassment, and Galya, wide-eyed at Leonid Andreevich. Leonid, where are you from? I do not understand anything. Vova pushed Leonid into the house of light. Think about tea or coffee for us. Here he arrived. Svetlana quickly set the table, and Galya thought how much she wanted to see him, and here he is. But he is so heavy on my soul. It would be better if I didn't see him now. I don't want to die soon. Everyone sat at the table. Leonid started talking. Galya, the fact is that I have many friends in the world of medicine. With someone we teach. We cross paths with someone by profession. We all communicate and try to help each other. When their exams arrived, I sent it to my friend who works on your illnesses, but he said what I already knew, but offered to show it to another friend. Typically, this friend is recruiting a group of patients for experimental treatment. That's a risk. But this is a chance, and a good chance, and he immediately said so. I took the liberty and wrote to you and then ran to your house. You don't have to. The neighbor told me where you could. By the way, she asked me to tell you that her husband is doing something wrong with the apartment. I really don't know what. Tomorrow you have to go to the clinic. Otherwise they will take someone else in your place. There was silence at the table. Galya felt so strange she must die. And then they told her that there is a chance. She wanted to believe so much. But she had another thought, and if she will believe, if she wants to live again, the treatment will not help. She was thinking what kind of disappointment awaits her then. Everyone was silent, as if they understood what a fight was going on in her now. Finally Galya raised her head. I will go. Of course I will. Vova exhaled. If you had refused, then I would. I would tie you up personally. I will take you there. So my dears, you need to get ready and sleep for a few hours. Galya needs to leave before o'clock. Let's get ready. You went away. You accompanied Leonid and Galya to the car. Galya got into the car and immediately felt embarrassed. Yes, of course she is sick, but she is still a woman. She really liked Leonid. They had to spend a short night together, but she quickly gathered everything she needed, arranged the sofa for Leonid, turned around to say that he could go to bed. and he was right behind her, and she herself was not. I realized how it ended up in his arms. They couldn't sleep in the morning. At o'clock, they left while Leonid was packing her things. Sveta took her aside. Galya, you are all shining, that's what I think. Galya nodded, embarrassed, and Sveta suddenly became serious. Galechka, I'm very happy for you. So you can't even imagine. I ask you to remember that there is always meaning in life. You simply must fight for yourself, for his sake. You listen. Galya looked firmly into the eyes of her new friends. I will fight with all my strength. I promise. They hugged each other tightly and Galya tightly in the car. Vovka approached her and looked out the window. Lenya said that the treatment lasts about 6 months. Don't worry. We will take care of the house and heat it. You will be back in time to open your shop for us. Galya laughed. Well, I can't miss this event. I will definitely go. We will go to the city. They were silent. Galya couldn't speak. Only already in the city when they stopped at the hospital. I asked Leonid. I don't know what will happen next and if it will happen, but I ask for your help. I want to file for divorce and division of assets, even if nothing will help me. I want to go to the next world as a free man. Of course I will help. Just go away. No one will have you, and I still have so much ahead of me. Galya was immediately admitted to the hospital. Her assistant, Dr. Igor Igorevich, seemed like an abnormal person. However, like all the geniuses with her in the ward, there were 2 more women. They called him nothing other than a genius. It was already the 2nd week she was in the hospital. She went to Leonid for a long time. She wrote all the divorce documents, wrote that she could not appear because of illness, confirmed everything with Lenya's certificates. He said there would be a state lawyer at the hearing, even though he was essentially not needed and everything was so clear. I didn't want to see Maxim or his mother, and she asked me not to tell where he was. It turns out that Maxim decided to sue for the apartment. All this was postponed and Galya was great to him. She understood that if she died before the apartment was divided, then everything would go to him, which means that she simply had to get the door open. Galya did not take her eyes off the book, because Lenya would not be on duty today, and there was no one else to go to her. Look at her as if we had nothing to do with her. Galya looked up and almost finished. The girls, Sonia and Valya, stood in front of her. Lord, where did she kiss them? And the girls began to unload everything they brought. The bedside table, where you brought so much. I will never eat this. You can't eat alone with your neighbors. You will share. By the way, your lord's name is Leonid Andreevich. Valya came to the reception. He told me, where are you? And the what's the matter with you? She called me. We still communicated after the hospital, and here we are. Well, Lenya didn't say anything. The women looked at each other and Galya was embarrassed. Well, yes, we are together. I don't know how much time we were given, but I am very glad that Sonia stroked your hand. It was immediately clear that you were simply made for each other, and there was no I need to resist. Well, tell me. They talked for about 2 hours. By the way, Valya said that her brother has his own variable and will definitely be happy to buy domestic chickens, and not only you understand what home cooking is like there, but it's very difficult to find all these homemade things, and if elsewhere it's simply impossible. You talk to them, and I'm with him tomorrow, Ovalechka. It would be great. The next day, Galya, like a real advertiser, described on Vovka's phone all the benefits of such cooperation. So she hung up the phone with satisfaction and said to herself, well, Galya, life is fundamental to you lately. Before and half of these activities did not happen, and in the morning there Igor Igorevich came. Well, the girls are ready for tomorrow. We are starting treatment for each of you, our own course. You will receive the most difficult treatment. You must be prepared for the fact that you will want to go to the next world faster from this, as you will feel bad in a very short time. You understand? Therefore, we will treat you aggressively. What is required of you is patience. You must eat. I am telling you now so that you do not forget. Then you will feel so bad that just thinking about food will be disgusting. But you simply must. If you don't have the strength, your body can't handle it. Are you ready? Yes. She looked at him. I'm ready for anything. That's great. In the evening the next day, Galya felt well what Igor Igorevich was saying. It wasn't easier for the girls. I saw it together. It was somehow easier. Lenya came almost every day. He sat by her bed, told some funny stories. Sometimes when she fell asleep due to impotence, he just remained silent and looked at her. Galya, it literally dried. That seemed a little more and the skin became transparent. 2 days passed months since the start of the treatment. That is, the period that destiny had reserved for her had already passed. And that gave me hope. After some time, the treatment subsided. Extensive, and Galya even managed to catch her breath. Outside, autumn was already approaching. She slowly walked to the window. Beautifully, Lenya promised that she would take her today to do it alone. She has not yet been able to make this journey in the morning tests and a full examination only in a few days. Will something be known? Galya, you are ready? She turned around. The room. Lenya was already in front of him. There was a wheelchair. The carriage was delivered. Galya suddenly remembered how she resisted the same chair when she arrived at the hospital. It seemed like it was a shame now. She didn't care as long as she arrived on the street. She took a deep breath. How good it was. Galya, the woman, opened Lenya's eyes with. With a smile, he handed her an ice cream. Maybe a cone like the ones we ate when we first met. Maxim sat at the table and listened to what his mother was telling him. And she just talked and talked. I honestly don't understand why you don't do anything, Mom. What am I doing? What should you do? He was tired. He sighed, sat down, argued with his mother. He hadn't been around for a long time. When Galya was not around, all Mother's attention returned to him, was not just tormenting him, did not let him live, unless Maxim was late at work or was generally late somewhere. His mother started calling 3 minutes late. Acquaintances even asked if he was going to get married again. He dismissed the call, but it was in vain that his mother always insisted, as you know. All the deadlines were 100% past due. Is no longer alive. Come on, Mom. But they would have told me why. Suddenly it's you who is practically a stranger to her, not forgetting that you got divorced almost a year ago. Also, the idiot couldn't convince her not to get one. Divorce. Maxim sighed again. Mom. Well, you said then that everything is fine. You won't need to spend money on a funeral. Iraida Fedorovna looked at him in surprise and said that you could correct me. You need to understand that the apartment is at stake. I knew your wife worse than you. Maxim grabbed his head. So I wouldn't do anything wrong to you. Tell Mommy. Aren't you tired? You should take a walk. Iraida pursed her lips. Her mother is trying to make a fool of herself for you. Because you can't do anything yourself, and everything is wrong for you. She immediately shed a tear, watching her son. Mother, sorry. Don't cry. Something you suggest? She instantly calmed down as hundreds made a decision. Village. Find Galya's grave, take a photo well, so that there is evidence, and all this is brought to court. They are probably waiting for her, and they don't know that there is no one to wait. Otherwise, they would have cut it off. The apartment long ago. Maxim understood that his mother was right, but he really didn't want to go there. That's how suddenly Galya is alive. Although no, it's complete stupidity. Even so, she had difficulty walking, constantly stopping to rest, and that. It's the year. Well, we probably need to do well, Mom. I'll go on the weekend, and you know I'm with you in the same place. Her house is still there. Maybe it can be sold too, Mom. Why is he so and? She had no one but you, and so Mom was right. But her words made her feel rather unpleasant. We decided to go early on Saturday morning to get back quickly. The car was recently repaired, but Max saved the money and provided it. With the cheapest pieces. Look, the guy decides, of course, but these details rarely last long. Of course, he didn't talk to his mother about it. He didn't want her to refuse the trip. He blamed Galya for everything. If it weren't for her, he would have bought a new car a long time ago. He would never have thought that Galya would be able to accept the money and threaten him, but nothing now. You got everything you deserved. He will go on Saturday and justice will prevail in general. Maxim is already terribly tired of living with his mother at work. He had an affair and has nowhere to take a woman because the apartment is for rent and my mother insisted. I don't understand you. This is your room. You can get money first. He liked his mother. She always cooked a lot of different things, but then he got tired of her. The mother watched not only every step, but for every penny. She wanted some kind of certainty to get away from her mother. He didn't talk about it because immediately there would have been a scandal. Sveta, Why are you snooping, Vovka? Don't interfere with Sveda's hand. Sveda was counting the glasses on the table. There is enough for everyone. I still have a spare. For sure. I definitely have. And you are all ready to offend. Look, Vovka made a light hand gesture. She looked with a smile at where he was pointing. Their first big purchase was there. A big car. Of course it was a car, but of such dimensions, and with a trunk that could fit half their house. The car had rings. Vova went to the city yesterday specifically to pick them up. Lena and Galya didn't even know. Vova prepared a surprise for them. An hour later, they decided to sign the painting here at the local village council, which was in a neighboring village. They decided to do everything in a village style because in the coming years, Vovka and Sveta expected let them be young forever. We decided to live in the village of Galya. Fresh air was prescribed for Elena from her galley. Nowhere with great joy, they took him to work as a paramedic. They set tables in the yard. Sveta and Vova didn't have so many guests, only the best and most close to them. Valya looked at home. We'll probably take the girls and go to the village council. Sveta looked at her daughters again. All three were wearing pink fluffy dresses. Yes, Valyasha, you can go there. Sonia will stay to help you, remember? She laughed at us for the toast. You won't forget. I remember with a shudder yesterday's rehearsal. They laughed about yesterday. Who was standing where? Who was saying what? Vala's husband came in. He was helping Vova decorate the car well. Come on. The girls noisily loaded the car towards Valley. Her husband Sveta came to the car. Nadia Luba, you were a gift. Gallon fed mothers fed and walked, and he also grabbed Aunt Valya by the finger as he grabbed him. He was very small. Valera laughed and showed the finger that had holes from the teeth. Then I thought that he was very small, and that boy has very sharp teeth and a not very good character. The car left and Sveta returned to the yard. Then you see them everywhere, and Sonia and I will come back in a party. They loaded the car and went to Galya's house. To be honest, I just wanted to sign discreetly, but Leonid, Sveta, Vovka, Sonia, and everyone who participated in her life recently just attacked her. You want to deprive us of vacation. How can you not want a wedding? Galya, what did she think then? And is it true that it was she who remembered how she discovered the disease? The risk decreased. But Igor Igorevich seemed to be deliberately biding his time. Sat down, looked them from head to toe and said, but what are you waiting for? They stopped at Lenya's house. They lived on the ocean. The doctor calmly raised his hand. I must pause so that everything seems as solemn as possible, Galya said quietly. You mean here too? Igor Igorevich did something that no one expected from him. He jumped up because of the shouting. We won. You were the hardest thing. I got sicker and we won. What happened to Galya then? She cried, laughed. She still couldn't understand that she didn't need to die. You can live the way she wants now. Galya looked in the mirror. She chose a dress to the floor with open shoulders. The dress was blue with a silver tint. She caught an admiring look in the mirror. Lenya turned to him. Well, how I like you. You are amazing, Gaka. You are really super. Standing on the threshold. Vova, he was in a suit, so he looked important. Stop cooing. The creation of a social unit is waiting for you. The window, and laughed Vova. Why are we already adults? No, I don't understand. Is it your wedding, or what are my girls? For ma'am, they are getting ready and preparing to lead. Everyone can't. Please, please, please. Harry kissed him hard on the cheek, or didn't immediately show his fist to him. Sonia fussed, handing out coins for the guests. Iris spread it on the young. She herself took the bread. She had a very responsible attitude towards what was entrusted to her, or rather, she herself. I asked, to be more precise. When I found out that they were going to turn the wedding into an ordinary party, I was so indignant that even now I could hear arguing with Sonia. No one tried. Everyone knew that it was completely useless. Galya was equally happy. How beautiful she looked at whoever came to congratulate them, and smiled in general. Lately, all she did was smile. Well, what if life is so wonderful? Sonia announced the delivery of gifts. They were placed near a small decorated table, and everyone began to wanting to put something for them in envelopes. It was all so emotional that Galya lost sight of her now husband. I just wanted to ask where he went. As Sonia said out loud, every person has a dream, and so does our bride. Young wives too. So Leonid decided that it was he who should make this dream come true. The next moment Galya gasped. Lenya walked towards her holding in her arms a fat little diving dog. He was quite a baby, really the size of a young lamb. So Galya just needs to invent them. Galya took this miracle in her arms and licked the miracle on her cheek, wiping away the tear that fell from their Lenya. You are the best. You are the best. I love you very much. It's been about an hour from the beginning of the party when Galya addressed the guests. We must leave them for a while, but we will return. Galya, you were the woman smiled sadly. I once lived here with my grandmother. She's been gone a long time, but I'm back at her house here where everything reminds me of that life. We're going to the cemetery. I have to tell her that I'm glad someone volunteered to go with them. Someone was waiting at the table. Galya took the flowers prepared in advance and they went to the cemetery, which was outside the village, a miracle for which Galya could not find a name. Ran around them. Look, some kind of car. Someone arrived. Sveta pulled her husband's sleeve. Well, we arrived. We are in our business. Miracle. Hey, miracle. Where did you go? The little dog ran somewhere in the depths of the cemetery after someone barking loudly. It still couldn't be called. I was talking to an idiot. Let's ask someone. Mom, stop calling me an idiot. How do you imagine this? You had to make a woman die. Where can I find my grave? Iraida Fedorovna laughed. What do you think? Should we wander around the cemetery for 2 hours, looking for something that is not clear? Perhaps she died in the hospital, then was buried in the city. Have you ever thought about this before? That's how they call you an idiot if you don't care yourself. You can't think of anything. Maxim didn't have time to answer. A little dog literally rolled at their feet with a loud cry. EW, bastard scared us. But now we'll find out everything. Maxim laughed. Asked the dog. That's very clever. Mommy. Iraida Fedorovna sighed. Of course not. An idiot. A purebred puppy. Of course he doesn't live. Who? He came with someone. Maxim turned his back angrily. He himself could have guessed the miracle. Maxim thought he heard a familiar voice. He turned and saw his mother clutching her heart. Galya ran to them. Or rather, it was Galya and not Galya, very beautiful. Some kind of supernatural woman in a dress that seemed to glow. She saw them too and stopped halfway. The little dog ran up to her, happily wagging its tail. You, Galya. Maxim already realized that Galya was not a ghost at all. She was very real and incredibly beautiful. He wanted to say something, but Galya. A whole crowd of people approached. Judging by the clothes, it was clear that people were walking at a wedding, and whose wedding was also not difficult to understand. Galya, you will get married. Maxim I looked at her confused, but something was wrong. Since you were cured, you should have come back to me. He understood that he was talking complete nonsense, but he didn't hold back. Yes, Galya just deceived him. She was going to die, and now such a healthy and beautiful mother pushed him, and he got up. Idiot in general. You can't do anything in this life, and you will live with me for the rest of your life, Lord. She had to give birth to an idiot. She walked towards the exit. Everyone who was next to Galya moved aside to let her pass, and Maxim stood there and looked at them. Finally, said Vovka, it seems to me that there is nothing worthy of attention there. Man, I understand correctly now. You and your mother were looking for graves here. They scared. Maxim was silent. He perfectly understood how everything looks now, and to say that he was just walking here would not be entirely appropriate. Vova took a step towards him. But you are the man, Leonid added. Vova, stop calling him. Your man is your mother's child. Slug. Come on. They turned and walked along the path. A minute later, and Max went to the exit. He wanted to cry. He wanted to fall to the ground and stamp his feet. But he will prove to everyone that he is a man. An idiot came. Maxim calmly sat down at the wheel and turned to. One more word to your mother and I will take you out of the car, and you will go to the city on foot. Iraida Fedorovna even began to pant with indignation, but something in her son's eyes told her to leave her. She closed her mouth and decided that somehow she would be silent until the city. But then wait, son. They returned to the tables an hour later. A miracle, it seems it should be called, that now stretched out under the table in the shade, and Vova filled the glasses. Sveta dropped hers and took the juice. Galya smiled. Now there will be something charming. She and Sveta hid the secret as best they could. Lenya helped to do it silently. Ultrasound in the most acceptable period to find out who it is. Vova looked at his wife in surprise. Why don't you drink for the health of young people? Don't worry, how many assistants do you have? Will wash everything they will bring. Yes, that's not why I... Vova also dropped the glass and wiped my suddenly sweaty palms. Why did Sveta smile? But how? Why did you ask your son like that? You will get it. Sign this break. This look would be the envy of the coolest artist in the entire era of cinema. Vova coughed, and then Vova cried and hugged his wife. I thought Sveta had never been so confused. She had never been so confused. I saw that Vovka was crying. She quickly took him away, and Sonia, who was also wiping her eyes, loudly proclaimed how bitter it was. Galya. Leonid stood up embarrassed. He managed to whisper to her, I feel like a teenager. Galya smiled, and they walked until dawn. The children were tired and slept huddled together on the sofa in the house right in the middle. A miracle was lying on his back. He was also very tired today. So Sonia was very tired. And Valley had to help him get to bed. You don't understand. Today is the most important day of my life. Sonia laughed. When the son is born, then what did Vova think? And then it will be more important. I'm going to sleep. He kissed the light. You are my favorite. Recipient laughed. Go now. Father of many children of the new one did not go to bed until he kissed all his princesses. Harry watched them all sitting in Leonid's tight embrace. A year ago, the world seemed black and white, even blacker. But now she understood that life is beautiful. Happiness can be lurking around every corner. The main thing is not to run away from it. No hide, Lenya. And you can't imagine how much I love you. You can't imagine how much. I'm happy, but why can't I imagine? I imagine even a little less than I want to say. Galya looked at her husband in surprise. But no matter how much you love, I'm even more. No matter how happy you are, and I'm even more. But Lenya, don't argue with me. My husband, indecently argued with my husband. They laughed and Lenya hugged her even tighter.